Welcome to Season 6 of the Hey Girl podcast with your host and my mom, Bethany Needham. This season, we get to hear stories from guests who are running their race in their place right where God has them. We hope that these stories will encourage and inspire you to do the same. If you want more information or to connect with my mom, go follow us on Instagram at HeyGirlGram, friend us on Facebook at HeyGirlPod, or even better, head to BethanyNeedham.com and sign up for our email list so that you can get all the Hey Girl tea. All right, it's time to grab a cup of coffee or your favorite seltzer. Here's my mom.
Hey girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Hey Girl podcast. This week, I get to introduce you to my real life friend, Claudia, and I can't wait for you to hear her story. But before we get to it, just a quick reminder that we have launched our brand new business, Hey Girl Fitness. And as we're beginning this new season with Hey Girl Podcast, we want to keep encouraging you, our listeners, through the podcast to run your race in your place. And now with Hey Girl Fitness, we get to help train and equip you for your race. So here's the deal. We are kicking off Hey Girl Fitness with a Take Your Mountain challenge. For 60 days, we're going to commit ourselves to moving our bodies intentionally towards building strength and increasing our endurance. We will fill our minds and hearts with truth from God's word, reminding us that we are more than conquerors. And finally, we get to do it together in community, encouraging one another, cheering each other on, and allowing God to use us in each other's journey. Now, this challenge is for everyone, regardless of fitness level or physical limitation. It's designed to meet you wherever you're at and encourage you forward into the race that God has set before you. This challenge is also for everyone, regardless of beliefs or denomination. We will be unapologetically pointing to Jesus and his word throughout this challenge, but we firmly believe that Jesus doesn't require you to believe in him or agree with him to spend time with him and his people. You are welcome on this journey with us. So head on over to BethanyNeedham.com for more details and to sign up. I can't wait. All right, it's time. Let's head on over and hear this incredible interview with my girl, Claudia. Okay, girls, I am here with my real life friend, Claudia. Claudia, I don't always get to say that with guests. Like, I know you in real life.
Mm-hmm. You do.
In fact, we just spent New Year's Eve together.
We did. It was super fun. I'll keep all the secrets.
I was going to say, no stories to be shared.
No stories.
No. It was wonderful. But Claudia, I am so excited to have you back on the podcast, and so many reasons for that. But before we really delve into the here and now, I want you to just take some time for listeners who have not ever heard your story and maybe don't know who you are, and just take some time to introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Claudia. I live in New England in New Hampshire, around New Hampshire. I am a mom of 3. I am married to my husband for, oh my gosh, I don't even remember how many years now. Isn't that awful? Since 2007.
A lot.
Yes, a lot. So I think we're going to celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary then.
Yay!
Yes, 15 blissful, wonderful years, right?
Is that one of those best 12 years of my life?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been a journey from, my last episode with you. We talked about God's restoration of our marriage. We had both pretty much fully walked away from our marriage, and it just hit rock bottom, and we kind of looked at each other like, what are we doing? So we had family come alongside of us. We had friends. We had especially our church family come alongside of us and help us through a lot of that. And we made it work. We worked through a lot of issues, and it's worth every second. It was worth every tear shed. Yeah. And that's where God's led us the past few years. It's probably been like 8 years now, I want to say, of God restoring our marriage.
Yeah. And that was a big part of the story that we shared in your first interview, which people can go back, obviously, and listen to that and get a better understanding. But maybe for somebody who's listening right now, because with stories like these, and I mean, just the number of downloads, I would assume that
Mm-hmm.
there's at least a percentage of people that are facing or have faced some type of crisis within their marriage. Like that's not, unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's more common. And
It's
so
funny
without
because
necessarily,
I feel like, even now, like walking through everything that Rick and I have been through, it's like God has put several married couples into our lives, and some have worked, some haven't, but it's always just interesting going back to that it's like, now I look at it like, why me? Like we were in such shambles before, but it's, it's God using our story to help other people too. And for us to be able to help others, and again, whether it's worked or not, just to be there for people and be a listening ear is huge.
oh, absolutely. And I wonder, just for, again, we won't retell the whole story, but I think it sometimes can be helpful for people who are listening. Maybe give us an idea of when it comes to, when I think about marriage, and more than just marriage, but in a lot of things, when we find ourselves in that place of, like you described, rock bottom, very rarely is that I was, on a mountaintop and I just nosedived all the way to rock bottom. Like it's generally a journey and it's steps in a direction. But as someone who has walked a difficult but also beautiful journey in your marriage of finding yourselves in a really tough place and then allowing God to do a work there, what are some of the things that when you look back, you're like, these were some of the steps that I feel like weren't the nail in the coffin, I guess some people like to say, but were steps that, we're starting to lead us down that path of before we hit rock bottom?
Oh gosh, I think our lack of communication with each other was a huge one. That it was like, our pastor used to say, you guys are saying the same thing, but you're just totally missing the middle point of each other. And it was really true, because I feel like we started to become very selfish, and it was, more like my feelings and how I felt. And yes, yes, obviously you have feelings and you feel things, but at the same time, it's like you can't take yourself and not bring your spouse along with you with that. And they have to be willing to sit down and listen to you too, and vice versa. But it's like the minute we would talk to each other, it was automatically like, you're attacking me, I'm going to attack you back, and vice versa. So it's like, I remember I used to talk to Rick and say, I'm not like pointing the finger directly at you, but it's like he would take it that way. And then he would push back on me. And I think I talked about this before. Our pastor did a whole, what animal we are. And I'm a shark. So the minute my husband would say something to me, I was like, well, I'm out for your jugular now. So, it's like, again, our communication was so off, and we were missing each other's needs because we were putting ourselves before the other person and giving what is it? They always say, the selfless love. You have to die to
Mm.
yourself. And you have to realize that your marriage is a commitment and you're united with each other. It's a joint effort. It's not a single person.
Mm.
And
Absolutely.
we nosedived off of that mountaintop until we got close to the bottom, and then the parachute lifted.
So, following that analogy, for someone who maybe they're in a rough spot in their marriage right now, were there anything specific that you remember that were decisions you made from that hard place that for you looking back, you can see were a step forward from that, like
Oh,
a healthy step forward out away from rock bottom?
yeah. Thank God I brought my box of tissues, Bethany.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh. I can remember my phone call to a T. I had called a close friend of mine, and I don't know, it was just a really bad day. And I remember calling her and pouring out everything to her. And she just was like, you need to call, the mentors that were in our life. And I remember finally biting the bullet and saying, okay, I'm going to call.
Mm.
And gosh, I remember picking up that phone and going through everything. And I was waiting for like the lashing of my life from her on the other end. And it wasn't like that at all. um, so, I just really think you need to be able to open up to somebody. And have that mentorship and have somebody come alongside of you individually, but then you have to have somebody come together to walk along the both of you.
Hmm.
And that's what we did. And that's what they did. We met with them individually. We met with them together. And eventually that transferred over to us reaching out to our church to continue that help and to continue to heal and restore our marriage and the love that we truly have for each other.
Hmm. I think you made such a important point when you talked about reaching out to somebody, is that you reached out to somebody who was for your marriage, for you and your marriage. Because sometimes I don't know if women are the worst at this, or I just think we are because I'm a woman and I know the way that we work. But we can make the mistake of just finding friends who, in the name of friendship and solidarity, sister, yeah, that will just rip apart
Mhm.
our, like, we go to them, and rather than trying to point us back towards our marriage, can really do even further damage by affirming whatever it is that we feel, justified in, or affirming our anger or our frustration. And not that those things, there's always part of it that, there's, what did they say? There's your truth, there's his truth, and then there's the
The
truth that's kind
truth.
of the mix. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think that there's something important in when you seek out help in friendship. This isn't even just marriage, anything, but that people are actually pointing you ultimately to Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And so in that, what is God's best for you? And sometimes as friends, that can be saying the hard thing.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's coming alongside and being like, listen, I love you no matter what, but you gotta get some help for this. And
Yeah.
so I love that you had and you have those people in your life.
I
Is
think it's definitely important, even in your marriage, like if you don't put God first above everything, they talk about the Bible verses of unevenly yoked. Even I grew up going to church and stuff, and like many others, I mean, we're all sinful by nature. That is just us as humans. We fall, we sin every day. And I just feel like it's so important for your marriage to be kept on that hill, that it's like God comes first, and then it's your marriage, and then
mm,
it's your kids. I feel like you start to get caught up and everything else that you fail to remember the order, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, the pyramid order, if you want to call it that, So I feel like even reaching out to people for help, it's like, who are you aligning yourself with? Are you going to go to godly wisdom and godly advice, or are you going to go to those friends for the name of friendship?
Yeah. And there's the reality that godly wisdom and godly advice is harder to find. It takes more work to seek that out. And I I guess I want to recognize that, because I'm sure for those listening, that's like, yeah, it must be nice. Like, yeah, sometimes it takes a lot of work and searching and putting yourself out there in vulnerability. If you don't have someone
Right.
in a friendship role, whether it's a pastor or a pastor's wife or whoever, and being willing to, hey, I need somebody in my life, and will you be my friend? The amount of times I've had that conversation is humiliating.
I'm still here, Bethany.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Claudia. Oh, well, one of the things that I appreciate about your story, and part of why I'm so excited to have you back, is obviously the last time we talked a lot more in detail about the journey that God's brought you on in your marriage and the work that he's done in your family. And we did not know in that moment, Claudia, that God had more work to do in your family. So I'm just gonna let you share what it looked like from our last interview to
Oh boy.
today.
Yeah. I think our last interview, it was the day before Thanksgiving. And so I had a surgery procedure, gosh, almost 4 years ago now, where I should not, never has it happened, gotten pregnant again. Lo and behold,
Spoiler alert.
yeah. 2 days later, surprise. I will never forget the conversation with my husband. Because this is a girl thing, and if you're listening, you're a guy, you're just going to have TMI, and that's okay. Whatever.
Just plug your ears.
Yeah, just plug your ears. So I remember not getting my period, and it was kind of light for a couple of days, and then it was like, okay, it went away. I was like, that's weird. Should have happened, but again, I had a uterine ablation almost 4 years ago, and they burn the inside of your lining out of your uterus, and chances of getting pregnant, less than 1%. And typically you wouldn't get a period again, or it would be super light. So I thought, all right, maybe all of a sudden, it was just super light, whatever. So I didn't say anything to my husband, and then he asked if I had gotten my period, and I couldn't lie to him. So I remember sitting there crying and just saying, no, it hasn't come, and I'm freaking out. So day after Thanksgiving, I took a pregnancy test, and I remember he left to go meet a couple of guys from church for a Bible study for breakfast, and I was awake, and I purposefully just laid in bed so he wouldn't ask me to take the test with him there. And I remember calling one of my really close friends, who and just, I think I sent her a picture first, and then I just called her sobbing. And yeah, so that started that journey. I will not lie, I was not happy in the beginning. And yes, I will tell my son that when he gets older. We were happy with our 2 kids. We were not planning to have any more kids, hence me getting the surgery. And praise God, like I joined a couple of groups that have had these situations where they've gotten pregnant afterwards. And I can't even tell you how many women their doctors immediately told them to go get an abortion. And for me, that was never an option. I would never. That's my choice. And that's what I believe in. And I am so thankful that my doctor never said it to me, never brought it up. Like I said, chances of getting pregnant, less than 1%. My doctor had never had this happen before. And I remember him saying, well, I have to go do some research and read some more. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you're supposed to know all this. And, I remember, gosh, I can't remember how long it was after finding out, but I did have one night where I started bleeding and I thought, this is it. And I remember even my first ultrasound, I remember being in the car with my husband saying, okay, I know exactly how this is going to go. We are going to get there. They're going to do an ultrasound. They're going to see an empty sac. They're just going to clean everything out and everything's going to be back to normal. And I remember going in and she was like, oh, do you see the flutter of the heartbeat? I just was crying. I was like, yes. But for me, it was really nerve-wracking. So less than 1% chance of getting pregnant, less than 20% chance of even carrying full term. So it was really an everyday scare. And so I had to stop working out, which working out is my mental happy place. I was in really good shape and I was happy with everything, and pregnancy takes a beating on my body. So to find out I was even more high risk was really hard, mentally. Fast forward to, what was it? 5 weeks before I was 9 months pregnant, my husband says, we're going on vacation, camping. And I said, no, we're not. And he says, yes, we are. It's our last vacation of the 4 of us. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. So we went camping. 2 days into camping, my water broke. And I remember at first, like, everything's fine. No, nothing happened. And even my husband, maybe you just peed your pants. I'm like, I don't know. I can't stop it. So we had to drive, it was almost 2 hours to get to the hospital. And I had to deliver at a higher trauma hospital in case of complications, which meant I couldn't even have my doctor who has delivered my other 2 babies. I've been with him for years. So we had to pack up, which we literally left our cabin full of stuff, told the owners of the campground, somebody will be back. And so we drove to the hospital, and they confirmed, yep, your water broke. And and my son was born 5 weeks early. I knew I needed a C-section. It was my first time. Talk about God's hand on all of that. Whew, I'm going to start crying again. Have 3 kids, you won't get emotional. I remember it was an hour and a half. 3 anesthesiologists could not get any meds in my back to numb me up. And I remember laying there and them saying, we're going to have to put you completely out. Your husband's not going to be able to be with you. Whew. That was, I remember just uncontrollably crying. And I just kept asking them, like, please promise me I'm going to wake up. There was just so many unknowns of everything. The health of me, the health of my son. And I just remember my husband coming in and saying bye and telling me he loves me. And that was it. Surgery was 6 hours. My son was born within about a half an hour after they got me open. And so they brought him straight to my husband. Praise God. I ended up needing a hysterectomy from it. So it was just really hard just to go through that unexpected pregnancy. As much as I say, we didn't want to get pregnant or anything, what a huge blessing. From being woken up then and being told, yeah, we had to take everything out, it was like, okay, like double whammy. And he was 5 weeks early. So then it was the unknown of his health. Praise God. Doctors were amazing. He was in the NICU, and all he needed was glucose to get his sugar levels up. No oxygen, no nothing. It was all God. I couldn't get out of bed for the first 3 days. So it was trying to take those obstacles of, do I formula? Do I breastfeed? I can't be with them. So I set an alarm on my phone every hour and a half to pump and give him what I could. He had lip and tongue tie, so we had to deal with that afterwards. He had some circumcision issues, so we dealt with that. Other than that, gosh, he's amazing. He is absolutely amazing. And my older two are unbelievable with him. I couldn't ask for better siblings for him. So that's the story of my little boy coming to this world. His name's Malachi. And even that, like, gosh, the meaning of Malachi is messenger of God. And that's just how we felt with naming him.
So first of all, I can attest to the fact that Malachi is so adorable. It's ridiculous. But I think one of the things that I have appreciated, and even just watching your journey through this, is just the example. Because I think one of the things I appreciate about you as a person is that you are just a very authentic person. Like, if you meet Claudia, she's not going to put on a front like, this is Claudia. And
yep.
Yeah, I love that because I don't have to guess. It gets real right away. And that's something I think I just hold in high value in friendships. And to be able to witness you walk this journey of just so much, right? From surprise, you thought you were done having kids, which I know everybody's going to have opinions around that, but like, just putting myself in your shoes, your kids are older, they're not little anymore. You just mentally, you're not in the baby phase anymore. And then you're like,
oh, yeah.
Wow, okay, this is happening. But then you tag on to that, everything you mentioned about the high risk pregnancy and just all of the emotion for all of those months. And then just the birth itself. Like, there were so many pieces, and I appreciated that you were real in your journey, even now in sharing it. Like, it wasn't easy. There were times when you shed tears, and I'm sure maybe even argued with God on, okay, are you sure you know what you're doing here?
Yep.
But,
absolutely.
Yeah. In the same instant, though, watching you embrace all of this and still walk in it, even in the hard, it's been a beautiful picture of just what for all of us running our race looks like. Like, sometimes we're sprinting and, like you said, we're in great shape, everything's good. And then there are some times when, we trip and feel like we just rolled over 5 times and we're trying to get back up on our feet. But you have done that. You've walked obviously through everything up until now. And of course, we know because both of us have kids that it's not like the hardest days are behind you.
Right.
Raising kids is its own thing. But just to see where you're at now, and I joked earlier about spending New Year's Eve with you, but that's the most time I've gotten to spend with your family in a long time. And it was
Mhm.
so neat just to see Malachi and be like, he's here. Like, look at this guy.
I
And like
know.
any friend that I've had go through that surprise pregnancy, yours is no different, where you're like, I can't imagine your family without Malachi. Like,
Yeah.
he belongs, and it's beautiful.
So even in that time, so I say, Malachi means messenger of God. So when he was 3 months old, my dad passed away,
Mm.
and gonna make me cry again. So even with that, it's like, gosh, if he wasn't here to make me get up every day and to be able to have to take care of him, which, taking care of my older two, I don't know if I could have done it and handled going through my dad passing, which, was clearly hard in itself. But to
Mm.
have him here and have, like I said, have to get up every morning, he was my purpose of getting up and having to keep going and to fight through that grieving process.
Mm. Yeah. And obviously you touched on something that not everyone has walked through, necessarily a loss that great and so close to your family, in terms of it being your dad. But again, I just all that I know of you and what I've seen, it's been such a testimony to me, and I'm sure to others, that it's okay for things to not be okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay it's okay to cry and to weep and to mourn, and all of these things are part of our journey. And I think you have done that in such a beautiful way, that even for your kids, I think giving them that example and permission for them
Mm.
to walk through hard things and to feel them and that be okay. And though as your friend, I wish you didn't have to walk through the things that you've walked through. I want to say that I appreciate, as someone just looking from the outside, of your faithfulness even in that.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, it was a lot. And I'll tell you, just even again, people coming alongside of you, going for godly wisdom and godly advice, that it's like, yeah, this time of my life really sucked. I'll say it, but it is that reminder of God's faithfulness that, he was there with me the whole entire way. His protection over me, over my child, my family, even my dad passing. Like, I know my dad is in heaven and I will see him again. And I'm grateful for the time that my kids have had with him, even for Malachi. I mean, he won't have a memory, but I have pictures, I have videos, and he will know how much my dad loved him. But
Mm.
again, just to have the faithfulness to God and have God's faithfulness back, just to feel and trust his presence over everything that has gone on. I don't know how I
Mm.
would have done it without him.
Amen. I have used this statement many times before in regards to it's okay to not be okay.
Mm.
I also love the finish of that, which is, and I've had friends remind me many times that God loves us too much to leave us there. And so I just wonder for you, because obviously all of these things we've talked about, this has been quite a season for you. But I also know that currently, like where you are right now, you have found your groove in, getting back to exercising, which you talked about really
Yes.
loving. I know that you're homeschooling your kids right now, and something probably you never imagined doing, but you're rocking it. And so, for people, as we think about running our race in our place, what does this look like for you right now in this? You've just come out of a really difficult season. What are some of the things that you have done intentionally to sort of heal and
Yeah.
walk through that?
So within all of that too, my husband started his own business.
Let's just add it on.
Yep, just keep on going. So
Did you get a
honestly,
puppy too? I feel like you
yeah,
should get a puppy.
no animals, Bethany. Oh gosh, I'll borrow Fenway from you.
Perfect.
So even that, like, being there for my husband, like starting a business is not an easy, it is not for the lighthearted, for sure. As you know, even doing Hey Girl, it's a lot of work. And even Andy, with his stuff. So I knew and still know, like, I have to be there for him. I have to be that rock foundation that he doesn't have to worry about home stuff. And yes, obviously we still communicate, with things that go on. So that was like a kind of, okay, Claudia, pick up your big girl pants. You got to take the reins more of certain things to take off of him. So he didn't have to worry. So, that's been a big adjustment. I feel like it kind of makes you grow up fast a little bit, even though I'm older. I say I'm older, I'm not that old. Let's face it.
We're still growing up.
I know, we're still growing up. Still feel like I'm 18. But even my kids, like, we had put them back in school, which again, like, God's hand and everything. Like, I had my pregnancy, my dad passing away, it was stability for my kids where they were. But then we decided to homeschool again. So we pulled them out, and we pulled them out in November. So they had already started a school year that it was like, I almost felt like I was scrambling for a little bit, trying to figure out what I was going to do. But we found our groove. So homeschooling, yes, absolutely. It's been going good. My kids are happy. They're learning. We still get out and do stuff. We are not these sheltered homeschool people that don't socialize. I am a social person. My kids are social.
way to just go and insult people who make that judgment, or the homeschooler that's like, okay.
I still get people that'll ask, what do you do for social aspect? I'm like, my kids do things. Like, we don't stay prisoned in the house all day. Some days, yes, because I don't feel like leaving. Or I'm just
That's
in my
fair.
jammies all day. I won't
Best part of homeschooling.
I have sweatpants on right now. So yeah, so in the midst of everything, when I said my body takes a beating with pregnancy. And it's always a mind game for me that it is hard to see yourself on the other side of an obstacle when you're in a troubled season of life. And I remember telling my husband, I'm never going to get back into shape. The weight's never going to come off, because for me, I have to work my tushy off to get it to budge. And I was always one who was like, nope, we got to go to the gym. I need a gym. I can't work out at home. But at the same time, with my husband starting a business, it was like, where am I going to go that I can bring 3 kids that I wouldn't have to pay for additionally on top of gym, everything else? Thankfully, my neighbor turned me on to a couple of YouTube people that post workouts, and finally was like, all right, I got to do something. I'm not happy. I don't feel good. It's time to get me back to me in my mental state. So I wake up at 5 a.m. I do my weights at home at the end of my bed with just some dumbbells and a mat. And usually I do it in the dark, because sometimes my husband's still sleeping, that it's like, I can't even tell you. He wakes up and I'm like mid-rep and I'm like, good morning. But it works. And honestly, I used to run before I got pregnant, but it was more just for fun. And last year I did 2 half marathons.
Wow.
Never did I think I would ever run more than a 5K. And here I was training for half marathons. I would love to maybe do a marathon someday, but I don't know. It was a lot of training and I have 3 kids to take care of. So I'll just put that one on the back burner for now. I'm okay with my other little ones. But yeah, so it's funny because every time I've lost weight, you know, my husband and I always joke like, oh, you're in the best shape of your life that you have ever been in. And now it's like, I am in the best shape of my life than even all the other times. It's weird how it transpires. And I mean, from lifting too.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge proponent. I mean, I don't do it in the dark at the end of my bed while Andy's sleeping, but maybe I'll have to give that a shot. Maybe that's the magic sauce.
What happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom, Bethany.
I have no response to that. Oh my goodness. Well, Claudia, I appreciate so much even just your sharing about, I joke about doing the weights in the dark, but even just the testimony that is to your willingness to put in the work to care for yourself. And I think you know this about me, but I have such a heart and passion for women. I guess men too, but women, because I am a woman, for women to take better care of themselves, to be able, not just for weight loss or a certain physique, but because God has created us and designed us for a purpose. And I know for myself, I just don't want my health to be the thing that gets in the way. And there are those things that are outside of our control, and I totally get that. But I think sometimes we can make excuses for things that are very much inside our control. And
Yeah.
one of those excuses could be, you could have very well said, like, well, I can't afford to bring 3 kids to the gym, and I only like working out at the gym. So whatever, like, I'm just not going to do this. But instead, you're like, okay, this is my situation right now. These are my circumstances. How can I make this work in a way that is still stewarding this body and this life that God's given me, so that I can do all of these other things, like you said, that God has called me to, being a mom of, growing older kids, but now this little one that's running around and supporting my husband and his business. And so, yeah, it's a good challenge and encouragement that we can make excuses or we can find solutions. And you are a solution finder, my friend.
I think it's hard too, because like people that know me, like, my muscles are not huge, but I mean, they're good.
I would argue against that.
But they're not for everyone. And some people don't understand that. And I feel like it's important to say that's okay if other people don't understand it, because for me, it is my mental health. Like me running half marathons, that's not for everyone. But me running, regardless of the distance, that helps get me through a day. And those endorphins, I can't even tell you how that helps me in a day versus before. And I remember one of my friends, she was talking about a girl that she knew who was heavier set, and she was trying to lose weight, and she really turned to God and how that would look. And she started to pray before she ate, that it was like, okay, God, is this going to be nourishing for my body? is this something that you are approving of? That it's like, we are children of God. God gave us only one body, and we are so loved by him that it's like, what am I putting into my body? Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? Like, we've been given this life that he's given us, that how are we going to take care of it? I feel like I'm talking in circles, but you know what I mean. So I feel
No,
like
I agree.
I feel like even now it's like, yes, I eat healthy. No, I don't have cheat meals all the time. No, I don't eat crap all the time. I mean, I just took my son away for hockey over the weekend. I had 2 slices of pizza. It was amazing. So it's like, yes, I do indulge when I want to, but at the same time, it's like, my God, my body is God's. Like, I want to take care of it. And to me, that's what I do. I wake up at 5 a.m. I work out. I run. I like it. I enjoy it. And again, it's for my mental sanity, for myself, that it's like your mental health. And especially us as women, wives, moms, we tend to take care of ourselves dead last. I mean, we've all eaten the cold meal dinners, eaten the scraps of what's left, eaten alone because everybody else is eaten and taken care of first, and then everybody scatters. And it's like, eventually it's like, what are you doing for you? And my counselor, she always says, okay, what are you going to do for you in between the time that I'm going to see you next? And it's like, I don't know what that looks like. But for me, this is what this looks like right now, to maintain being stable. I just started working too, part-time. So it's like, in the midst of everything else now, it's like, okay, again, it's like, I'm still waking up at 5 a.m. to make sure I get that mental time. And I get anywhere from a half an hour to an hour before the kids wake up, that then I sit down and I have my time with God. I get my cup of coffee, I do my Bible study, I do my devotions, and it's like, that sets my mood for the rest of the day.
Well, I hope that this is an encouragement to listeners. And I know there'll always be those who hear it and are like, I could never do fine. There's always that I could never. And maybe that's accurate. Maybe 5 a.m. doesn't work for you. Maybe running or whatever it is doesn't work. But all of us, like, there are certain things that to me should be non-negotiables, because they're just a part of how we walk with the Spirit, like this journey that we're called on. One of those, like you said, is time with God. Like, at no point should our life be such that there's no space for us to be with God. And it may look different than in some seasons than others. Definitely moms of littles versus where I'm at with older kids, that I have to seek them out. They're not wanting to hang out with me all the time. But I would say the same with moving your body. Like, God has given us this body, and this, like you said, this is a temple of his Spirit. This is the gift that he's given. And how do we steward that and care for it in a way that is healthy and that helps us, again, in what he's called us to do? And so whatever that looks like, I just want people to be encouraged to be creative. And even if creative doesn't, again, mean in the dark at 5 a.m., it can be a different kind of creative, but don't be afraid to be creative and have fun with it too. Like, and I just think in the end, it's one of those things that the dividends that pay off from that, like for you, the energy that you have to work part-time and do all of these other things. So Claudia, I appreciate you so much. And I am so thankful that you were willing to come on and share with us again. And I mean, part of me hopes that 2 days from now, you get some crazy news and then we'll be back at this again. But then part of me doesn't want to wish that upon you. So
if that happens, Bethany, then you name me Mary. Okay. My name changes to Mary.
Yes.
The
She's like,
kids,
how I am pregnant.
oh my gosh. My daughter said to me one day, she said, Mom, what if you grew another uterus? I'm like, that is absolutely impossible. Well, you never know what God could do. I said, then you change my name to Mary.
I was thinking about that with all the statistics you were saying, like 0.1% or 20%. And I was like, these all
Oh,
sound like godly odds to me. Like he loves to take those
seriously.
small
Oh,
percentages. Well, in all seriousness, I'm so grateful for you for just how you run your race. And I, for one, am so glad that after our last interview, you had the shock of your life because now we all get adorable Malachi to appreciate.
yes.
So,
Oh, he is such a little love. I call him Turd for short.
oh, good. Oh, good.
Oh, because he
Thank
is. He's just such a ham. But I appreciate being asked to come back on and be able to share, gosh, like so much more to what my race looks like now. And I can't wait to hear everyone else's because we are all running different races of life. And no matter what it looks like, gosh, especially us as women, we need to be cheering each other on and building each other up. Absolutely.
Oh, preach. Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you.